this video, I want to take a few moments to talk about what is compound interest. And this is the formula for compound interest. I'll talk more in the next video about how to derive this formula. But the reason why this is so important is because suppose you have a savings account that's earning a interest or dividend at the end of every month, and you want to check that the bank has done their math correctly, or you want to maybe predict how much money you'll have in the future if you were to leave your money in that account. Okay, this is the foundation for how to do that calculation. And in this video series, I'll be eventually building up to how to exactly calculate your bank's interest payment in a savings account. Okay, so let's start with what is compound interest, because this is how banks are doing it. They're using compound interest, and let's first think through what these variables are. We're going to be using these variable names throughout this video series, and then I'll show an example in Excel that kind of shows the idea for how compound interest works. So A is the amount of money that you have after a certain amount of time. Okay, P is your initial amount, or sometimes that's referred to as principal, and that's where P comes from, principal. It's the amount that you start with. R is your annual interest rate. Sometimes banks will refer to this as a nominal or simple interest. Okay, what's important here is that the unit of time is annually. N is the number of times the interest is applied per year. All right. A lot of times banks will apply interest every day. So that is 365 days a year. So N would be 365. But you only get your payment once a month. And I'll talk more about that later. But basically, for right now, we can think of N as being maybe once a month. So that would be 12 times in a year. T is the number of years that you're waiting to see how much money you're going to have at the end of that amount of time. Okay, so let's think through a very simple example. Suppose I have $100. Okay, and a bank is going to offer me a simple interest rate of 6% or 0.06. So I know that at the end of 1 year, so when T equals 1, regardless of if it's a simple interest, regardless of how many times it's given to me throughout the year, I would expect that at the end of that year, I would have $6 extra. Or in other words, I would have my initial principal plus my principal times that interest rate. All right, so 100 plus 100 times 0.06, which is 100 plus $6, $106. Oops. $106. Right, and this is in the simple interest type example. Of course, the bank doesn't give me the money just once a year. Rather, they give it to me broken out every month, right? So I get, instead of getting $6 at the end of the year, I would get maybe like 50 cents per month. All right, and let me work through this in Excel to try to show you what I'm talking about. So we'll work through both a situation where I have simple interest and then what does compounding mean. Understanding simple interest first is very helpful to understanding what compounding is. Okay, so in a simple interest example, my interest payment would be, let me type in a formula here. So I'm going to type in equals, and I would have that $100 times my interest rate. And since I'm going to get it 12 times, I'm going to only get 1/12 of it. So I'm going to divide that by 12 for each month. Okay, so I'll get 50 cents. So my balance then would be that $100 plus this interest rate. All right, for the next month, this is not going to change, so I can actually just drag it here. See, the formula does not change in the simple interest world. I will stay with having $100 and I will get another 50 cents. So my balance would be this $100.50 plus that new 50 cents that I just earned. So I'll have $101 at the end of the second month. Third month, this calculation does not change in the simple interest example, right? And I would have that $101 plus another 50 cents. Okay, and we can continue like this in Excel. I can just drag like that to figure out at the end of the month, at the end of the year, I would have that $106. Right, so I would have earned $6 in interest at the end of the year. That's simple. All right, so how is that different from compounding? What happens in compounding? Well, for the first month, okay, for my interest payment, I will have that $100, okay, my principal, and I will still have that 0.06 that I'm going to break up 12 times. So nothing is different for the first month. I get 50 cents. So my balance is that $100 plus my new 50 cents. Where things start to change is in the second month, because instead of starting with $100, okay, I'm going to start with $100.05, right? And then I'm going to get 6% divided by 12 interest on that. So that's where the compounding comes in. I start with the amount that I had the previous month. I don't start with $100. I start with the amount from the previous month. Okay? So I get slightly more than 50 cents. And my balance will be this $100.50 plus my new interest payment. Okay? So I have slightly more money. For the third month, I'll take whatever my previous balance was. I'm going to press that instead of typing it out. Okay, so I'm using the formula in Excel. And I'm going to multiply that by 0.06 divided by 12. Okay, press enter. And now my next balance will be this much plus my interest, this much. Okay, and I'm going to continue like this. So I'm going to drag this down. And we'll see that at the end of the year, with compounding interest, I have slightly more money. I have basically 17 cents more than in the simple interest example. So this is the way compounding works. So instead of starting with $100 every time, now I'm going to start with whatever I had in the previous month and then apply my interest rate to it. Okay? All right, so using that idea, we can derive what this formula is, and that's what I'll do in the next video.